Most people think money is about luck, connections, or working harder. But what if I told you that wealth actually follows a law, not man-made, but biblical? And here's the truth. This law is working every single day, whether you understand it or not. That's why you'll see one person multiply everything they touch, while another keeps losing no matter how hard they try. It's not random. It's not unfair. It's a principle. See, the rich don't just have more money. They operate differently. They think differently. They respond to opportunities differently. And most importantly, they align with a law that most people completely ignore. If you miss this, you'll keep wondering why things aren't changing. But once you see it, really see it, you can't unsee it. And everything about how you approach money, opportunity, and even your purpose will begin to shift. Let me challenge the way you've been thinking about increase for a moment, because most people believe that desire is what attracts more into their life. They think if they want it badly enough, pray hard enough, or wish long enough, somehow more will show up. But that's not how it works. Increase doesn't respond to desire, it responds to stewardship. You can want more money all day long, but if you mismanage the money already in your hands, you're signaling that you're not ready for more. And the truth is, life is always responding to what you do with what you already have. Not what you say you want, not what you hope for, but what you consistently demonstrate you can handle. Think about it this way. If someone gave you 10 times more of what you currently have right now, 10 times the money, 10 times the responsibility, 10 times the opportunity, would your current habits be able to sustain it? Or would it collapse under the weight of your current level of discipline? See, the wealthy don't become wealthy because they suddenly get a big opportunity. They become wealthy because they've trained themselves to handle small things with precision, consistency, and intentionality. They don't wait until they have more to become better. They become better with what they already have, and then more shows up. That's the law at work. Most people are asking for overflow while ignoring order. They want abundance without structure. They want multiplication without management. But increase is attracted to order. It's drawn to discipline. It follows those who can take something small and make it grow, even if it's just a little at a time. If you can take a small amount of money and stretch it, invest it, multiply it, or even just control it, now you're demonstrating something powerful. You're showing that you respect what you've been given, and respect is what qualifies you for more. But if money comes into your life and immediately disappears, if opportunities show up and you don't act on them, if time is given to you and you waste it, then what you're communicating, whether you realize it or not, is that you're not yet prepared for increase. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Stewardship isn't just about money. It's about everything. It's about how you manage your time, how you manage your attention, how you manage your energy, how you manage your relationships, because all of these things are resources, and how you handle them determines the level of trust life places in you. The rich understand this, even if they've never heard it explained this way. They treat their resources like seeds, not like snacks. The average person consumes everything they get. The wealthy look at what they have and ask, how can I grow this? That one shift in thinking changes everything. Because when you start seeing what you have as something to multiply instead of something to use up, your behavior changes. You become more intentional. You become more strategic, you become more aware, and over time, those small decisions compound into something much bigger. Now, let me be clear, this isn't about perfection, it's about direction. You don't have to manage everything flawlessly. You just have to start managing things better than you did yesterday, because improvement signals readiness, growth signals capacity, and capacity is what attracts increase. You don't wait for a bigger life to become a better steward. You become a better steward, and that's what creates a bigger life. So instead of asking, why don't I have more? Start asking, am I managing well what I already have? Because that question will shift your focus from external circumstances to internal responsibility. And that's where the real power is. Because the moment you take ownership of what's in your hands, you position yourself for more to be placed into them. Handle what you have like it matters, and watch how quickly more begins to find you. Now let's shift your perspective on money, because most people chase it without ever understanding what it actually is. Money is not the goal. Money is a result. It's a byproduct of something deeper, something more fundamental, and that is value. You don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring to the time. And until you understand that distinction, you'll keep trading hours for dollars, wondering why there's never enough. The truth is, income is always tied to impact. The greater the problem you solve and the more people you solve it for, the greater the income you can command. That's why you'll see two people working the same number of hours, but one makes in a day what the other makes in a month. It's not because one is working harder, it's because one is producing more value in the marketplace. And here's where most people miss it. They focus on what they can get instead of who they can become. They ask, how can I make more money? Instead of asking, how can I become more valuable? Because when you increase your value, the money has no choice but to follow. Think about it. Every dollar you've ever earned came from someone else, and they gave it to you because you gave them something they perceived as valuable in return. That's the exchange. That's the system. And it works the same way for everyone. The wealthy understand this, so they don't chase money. They chase mastery. They develop skills. They refine their thinking. They learn how to communicate, how to solve problems, how to see opportunities where others see obstacles. And as their value increases, so does their income. But the average person stays stuck because they cap their value. They settle into comfort. They stop learning. They stop growing. And then they wonder why their income plateaus. It's because value stopped increasing. If you want a different financial outcome, you have to become a different person in terms of the value you bring. Not just doing more, but becoming more. Because who you are determines how you show up, and how you show up determines what you produce. Now, here's another layer to this. Value isn't just about what you know. It's about how well you can deliver it. There are people with incredible knowledge who struggle financially because they can't communicate their value effectively. And there are others with less knowledge who earn more because they know how to package, present, and position what they offer. So it's not just about having value, it's about making that value visible, accessible, and desirable to others. And then there's scale. This is where things really begin to separate. If you can only create value one-to-one, your income will always be limited by your time. But when you learn how to create value one-to-many, through systems, through products, through leverage, now your impact expands, and so does your income. That's why some people stay stuck financially, even though they're hardworking and talented. They're creating value, but they're doing it in a way that doesn't scale. The wealthy think differently. They ask, how can I serve more people without multiplying my effort at the same rate? Because when you solve bigger problems for more people in more efficient ways, your financial reality changes. Now let's bring it back to a principle. You don't get paid based on your needs. You get paid based on the marketplace's perception of your value. You might need more money, but the marketplace doesn't respond to need. It responds to value delivered. So if you feel like money isn't flowing the way you want it to, don't take it personally. Take it as feedback. It's simply telling you that there's another level of value you haven't tapped into yet. And that should excite you because it means your income is not fixed. It's expandable. Your earning potential is directly connected to your willingness to grow, to learn, to adapt, and to serve at a higher level. When you shift from chasing money to creating value, everything changes. You stop operating from desperation and start operating from purpose. You stop asking, what can I get? And start asking, what can I give that people can't ignore? And the moment you become undeniable in the value you bring, the money will follow you instead of you chasing it. Become so valuable that money has to find you. Now let's go deeper, because even if you understand stewardship and you begin to increase your value, there's something underneath both of those that quietly controls the results you see, and that is how you think. Most people try to change their financial situation by changing what they do, but they never change how they think. And as long as your thinking stays the same, your results will keep circling back to what's familiar, because your mind is always working to produce what it believes is normal. See, poverty is not just about a lack of money. It's a pattern, it's a lens, it's a way of interpreting the world. And if that pattern isn't challenged, it doesn't matter how much money passes through your hands. You'll find a way to return to what your mind is comfortable with. That's why you'll see people come into sudden money and then lose it just as quickly. It's not because they're unlucky. It's because their thinking never expanded to match what they received. Their internal blueprint stayed small, so their external results shrank to match it. Wealthy individuals operate from a completely different mental framework. They don't just think about earning, they think about owning. They don't just think about working, they think about leveraging. They don't just think about today, they think about multiplication over time. And here's the key: they didn't start that way because they had money. They have money because they started thinking that way. Your thoughts determine what you notice. What you notice determines what you act on. And what you act on determines your results. So if your thinking is limited, your actions will be limited, and your outcomes will reflect that limitation. For example, when someone with a scarcity mindset sees an opportunity, their first instinct is often fear. What if it doesn't work? What if I lose what I have? So they hesitate, they delay, they overanalyze, and eventually they miss it. But someone with a wealth-oriented mindset looks at that same opportunity and asks a different question. How can I make this work? What would I need to learn to take advantage of this? They move with curiosity instead of fear. And because they move, they create results. It's not that one person has better opportunities than the other. It's that one person sees possibilities where the other sees problems. And this shows up in everyday decisions: how you spend money, how you invest time, how you respond to challenges. Someone operating from scarcity tries to hold on to everything. They play defense. They focus on not losing. But someone operating from abundance understands that growth requires movement. They play offense. They focus on creating. Now, don't misunderstand this. This isn't about being reckless. It's about being resourceful. It's about believing that even if something doesn't go as planned, you have the ability to adjust, to learn, and to recover, because that belief changes how you show up. It gives you confidence to take calculated risks. It allows you to see setbacks as feedback instead of failure. And over time, that mindset compounds just like money does. Another thing you'll notice is that wealthy thinking is long-term. It's patient, it's strategic, it's willing to delay gratification today for a greater outcome tomorrow. While others are focused on immediate comfort, they're focused on future capacity. And that difference in thinking leads to completely different behaviors. One person consumes everything they earn because they're thinking about now. The other invests, builds, and multiplies because they're thinking about later. And eventually, those small, consistent differences create a massive gap. So if you really want to change your financial life, you have to be willing to confront your thinking. You have to ask yourself, is the way I'm seeing this situation helping me grow or keeping me stuck? Because until your mindset expands, your results will stay confined to the limits of your current beliefs. When you upgrade the way you think, you upgrade the way you live. Change your thinking and you change your results. Now, here's where things begin to come together, because once you start managing well what you have and you begin increasing your value and you start upgrading your thinking, you'll still run into a ceiling if you don't understand this next part. There are laws, real laws, governing how increase happens. And whether you acknowledge them or not, they are always working. Just like gravity doesn't need your permission to function, these principles don't require your agreement to produce results. You can ignore them, misunderstand them, or even resist them, but you cannot escape them. And the difference between those who experience consistent multiplication and those who stay stuck often comes down to alignment with these laws. One of the most misunderstood ideas is that success is random or based on luck. But when you really look closely, you start to see patterns. You start to see cause and effect. You start to realize that certain behaviors consistently produce certain outcomes. And when those behaviors are repeated over time, they create what looks like overnight success, even though it was built on daily obedience to principles. Take the idea of sowing and reaping. Most people want the harvest, but they don't respect the seed. They want results, but they're not consistent in the actions that produce those results. And even when they do the right thing once or twice, they stop too soon because they don't see immediate returns. But that's not how it works. There's always a process. First the seed, then the time, then the harvest. And if you interrupt the process, you delay the result. The wealthy understand this, so they don't get discouraged by the gap between effort and outcome. They stay consistent because they trust the law. Another principle is discipline, not motivation, discipline. Because motivation comes and goes, but discipline creates structure. It creates predictability. It allows you to show up and do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. And over time, that consistency becomes a competitive advantage. Then there's the principle of giving. And this is where many people get uncomfortable because it seems counterintuitive. How does giving lead to having more? But the principle isn't about loss, it's about flow. When you hold on to everything, you create stagnation. But when you release strategically, you create movement. And movement is what allows increase to circulate. Now, this doesn't mean giving blindly or irresponsibly. It means understanding that what you release with intention has the ability to return with multiplication. The key is alignment, giving from a place of purpose, not pressure. There's also the principle of faith. Not just belief in a general sense, but a willingness to act even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Because every opportunity carries uncertainty. And if you wait until everything feels safe and predictable, you'll miss the moments that require courage. The people who experience growth are not the ones who avoid risk completely. They're the ones who learn how to move forward in spite of it. They trust that as they take steps, clarity will come. And because they move, they gain experience. And because they gain experience, they make better decisions. And because they make better decisions, they create better results. All of these principles work together. Discipline keeps you consistent. Sowing and reaping keeps you patient. Giving keeps things flowing. Faith keeps you moving. And when you align with these, something powerful begins to happen. You stop forcing results and start attracting them. But when you're out of alignment, you feel it. You work harder but see less. You try more but gain less. And it's not because you're incapable, it's because you're operating against the system instead of with it. So the real question isn't, why isn't this working? The real question is, am I aligned with the principles that make it work? Because once you get into alignment, results stop being random. They become predictable. Align with the principles, and multiplication becomes inevitable. Now let's bring this to the final piece, because even if you begin to manage well, increase your value, shift your thinking, and align with the right principles, there is still one thing that separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck, and that is how you respond to opportunity. Most people are waiting for opportunity to show up in a way that feels obvious, safe, and convenient. They're looking for something that looks like a guarantee. But real opportunity rarely presents itself that way. In fact, most of the time, opportunity shows up disguised as a problem, a challenge, or even an inconvenience. And because it doesn't look the way they expected, they miss it. The wealthy, on the other hand, train themselves to see differently. They don't just look at what is, they look at what could be. Where others see risk, they see potential. Where others see obstacles, they see openings. And that difference in perception changes everything. Opportunity is not something that is handed to you fully formed. It's something you recognize, shape, and act on. And recognition requires awareness. It requires you to be paying attention, to be thinking beyond your current circumstances, to be open to possibilities that don't fit your comfort zone. But here's the truth. Most opportunities will require something from you before they give something to you. They'll require your time, your effort, your learning, your courage. And if you're not willing to invest before you see the return, you'll walk away from the very thing that could have changed your life. That's why hesitation is so costly, not because taking action guarantees success, but because not taking action guarantees stagnation. Every time you hesitate on something that has potential, you train yourself to stay in the same place. Now, this doesn't mean you jump into everything blindly. It means you develop the ability to evaluate and move. You ask better questions. You look at the upside. You consider what you might learn even if it doesn't go perfectly. And then you decide, because speed matters. Not reckless speed, but decisive movement. The longer you stay in indecision, the more opportunities pass you by. And while you're thinking, someone else is acting. While you're analyzing, someone else is learning. While you're waiting, someone else is growing. And over time, that gap widens. Another thing you have to understand is that opportunity often comes through people, through conversations, through connections, through moments that seem small but carry potential. But if you're not engaged, if you're not listening, if you're not present, you'll overlook what's right in front of you. The wealthy are intentional about this. They position themselves in environments where opportunities are more likely to appear. They surround themselves with people who are thinking, building, creating, because they understand that proximity increases possibility. And when the moment comes, they don't just see it, they seize it. But here's what really sets them apart. They don't wait until they feel ready. Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll wait forever. They move when they recognize alignment, even if they still have things to figure out. They trust that clarity will come through action, not before it. That willingness to move is what creates momentum, and momentum is powerful. Once you start moving, things begin to connect, resources appear, ideas expand, confidence grows, and what once felt uncertain starts to become clear. But none of that happens if you stay still. So if you've been wondering why things haven't changed, it might not be because opportunity hasn't come your way. It might be because it didn't look the way you expected and you let it pass. Start training yourself to see differently. Start asking, where is the opportunity in this? Even when things don't look ideal, because sometimes the very thing you're trying to avoid is the doorway to the next level of your life. Opportunity doesn't wait for you to be ready. It responds when you decide to move. Recognize it, act on it, and watch your life change.